After the last ice age, Homo sapiens migrated from their tropical homelands, some moving to northwestern Eurasia, becoming the ancestors of the Europeans, others over the Bering Strait to become the aboriginals of the New World. About 905 AD, the descendants of these two peoples met in what today is Newfoundland and Labrador.
People ignore this fact that the Vikings were in Canada 500 years before Columbus. And they generally ignore this by saying, well, nothing came from the Norse. They tried to put in a colony and the native peoples chased them away, and that was the end of it. But the Norse did establish colonies in Greenland. And these weren't small colonies. There were 3,000, 4,000, maybe 5,000 Norsemen living in Greenland for 500 years. There's no wood in Greenland, and wood is really necessary for building farms and ships and so on. There were lovely spruce forests, a couple of days' sail from Greenland and Labrador. And another reason that they were coming to Canada was to trade, mainly to trade with the Inuit, because the Norse needed walrus ivory. That was their big currency in Europe.
The archaeological site at Lanceau Meadow in Newfoundland revealed definite proof of the Viking presence in Canada. It is now believed that fishermen from Portugal and England were sailing here as early as 1450. So when Italian explorer Giovanni Caboto, better known as John Cabot, made his so-called discovery of Newfoundland, he was really following the instructions of those who sailed before him. Unlike the Vikings, who came for ivory and wood, the 15th century European explorer was interested in another commodity.
They say that Cabot's men went back stating that there was so much fish in the waters that they found it difficult to navigate. Now, the big question comes up, is fish big deal? What was so important about fish? But if you went back to the grocery bills of the day, you would find that more was paid for dried salt cod than for any other commodity. And the other thing to remember is that it wasn't just the English, it was the French and the Spanish and the Dutch and Portuguese who also discovered this fishery. By 1525, there were so many ships in St. John's Harbour that Captain John Rutt wrote a letter to King Henry to say, there are ships here of all nations. If you don't soon send an official settlement to this place, you're going to lose your hold on the newfound land. And in 1527, the Bute family were sent out to settle St. John's. And it also gives us the right to claim the oldest community in North America.
It's the general assumption that when Europeans braved the Atlantic in the 15th century and landed in the New World, they found that it was occupied very sparsely, a very sparse scattering of people living at a very low level of technology and low level of culture. And from what the demographers are able to put together now, there may have been roughly 100 million Aboriginal people in the New World, concentrated in the very high civilization areas of Mexico, the Caribbean. Even to the north of that, in what is now the United States and Canada, they calculate there may have been roughly 20 million people.
20 million people, comparable to the European population of that time, easily able to repel invaders. In fact, 100 years after Columbus, there was not a single European colony north of the Spanish areas of Mexico. Then, in 1604, the Europeans were able to establish permanent settlements.
The only reason that we can explain this is massive depopulation of the Aboriginal peoples. Demographers can calculate now something between 90% and 95% of New World populations died as a result of European diseases. In the 1600s, it was the people of the Maritimes who died off. By the late 1700s, 90% of the Chipewyan up west of Hudson Bay died. The last one would have been the Inuvialuit people of the Mackenzie Delta. 90% of them died in 1902 from measles.
Remarkably, the Inuit survived, and today the territories are the only region in Canada where the Aboriginal peoples, the Dene Métis and the Inuit, represent the majority of the population. For more information, visit our website on topoftheworld.net.